welcome. Today in this art lesson we're going to be making a sailboat picture. So if you'd like to follow along, we're going to be starting with using some watercolor paper along with our watercolors, or if you have tempera blocks, that will do the same thing. So for our sailboat, before we can actually get started on making the boat, we are going to make the water in the sky that the boat is sailing in. So to begin, if you have some oil pastels or some crayons, you can grab some white would be wonderful if you have it, but any other color you'd like to use. And what we're going to make are some waves. We're going to make some waves in the water. So if you take your crayon, I'm going to use my helper hand, my other hand, to hold my paper still as I draw to make sure that it won't move around as I'm working. And I want to make my hand make some wavy lines to create the waves for our picture. So I'm going to start on one side, maybe around halfway up my picture, and I'm going to have my hand go up and down to make a wavy line. Now right now, because I drew with white, I can't see it. It's an invisible. Hello, sky. Thank you for joining me. We are starting on our picture of our water where our sailboat is going to be sailing. So before we paint, we're going to make some lines and help add some waves to our water. So we've made one wavy line. Now let's try that again, maybe somewhere else. We're going to maybe a little bit below to make some beautiful wavy lines. I can choose another color if I'd like, maybe some. And with my blue, I'm going to do the same thing, having my hand go up and down across my page to add some wavy lines. Now the blue we can see, but the white we'll only get to see as we start to paint. I'm going to make some more wavy lines. Now maybe we could add some other things to our water, things that like to swim in the water, maybe some little fish, or whatever you would like. If you want to add some little ducks swimming in the water, or whatever you'd like to add. Now, if you'd like to make some fish, we can draw a little oval, just like this. I'm making a small little fish, a little oval. And to make the tail, I make a little triangle sticking out of the back. So I've got one little fish swimming in my water. Now I think that fish might be a little lonely, so I'm going to add a few more. Alright, if you're following along, I hope you've got some little animals or things in your water as well. So now that we've added some things to the water, at the top of our picture, that's going to be the sky. So we can maybe think of what things we could draw in our sky. Maybe there is a sun up in the sky that we could draw. So to make a sun, you can grab whatever color you'd like to make your sun. I kind of have a dark yellow here. And somewhere in the sky along the top, I want my... So I'm going to make a round circle shape somewhere at the top, my whole arm moving round and around. Here we go, round circle shape up here. I can color it in if I'd like. And maybe on some sunny days, there's sometimes also clouds in the sky. And I'm going to grab my white crayon again. And I won't be able to see it, but I'm going to have my hand make some round, squiggly lines, having my hand go round and around, and some little scribbles to add some clouds in my sky. All right, I think it's time to start some painting. Now you want your watercolor paints or your tempera blocks. You also want your container of water and a brush or two. And we want to, here I'm going to turn this a little bit. So you want to dip your brush in the water, because remember our watercolors will not work unless we add some water to them. That's the magic ingredient. And we're going to wipe it on the side and choose our color for the water. So if you'd like, you could use blue, you could use green, purple, any color you would like your water to be. I'm going to choose blue, but you can choose any color. And I'm going to go round and around with my brush. Round and around. Get a little more water there. And now I can paint along my water. Now if you want your color to be a little bit lighter, you dip your brush in the water, wipe it on the side, and just paint with a little bit of water on top of that paint, and it will spread out the paint and make it a little bit lighter. I'm going to keep painting with my color until I've covered the whole bottom part of my picture, which is the water. But if I'd like, I can switch to some other colors too. I'm going to add a little bit of green to my water. And I can paint a little bit on top and they start to mix together. And I'm trying to use big brush strokes as I'm painting. So always using my helper hand to hold my paper still. And I'm painting with big zooming brush strokes across the paper. Maybe a little more blue again. All right. I've now filled in the whole bottom of my picture with the watercolor. Now I want to choose a color to paint my sky. So if you'd like to make maybe this is the beginning of a sunset. So I'm going to make my sky a little bit. I'll maybe have some orange and some red in my sky. So I'm going to start with some orange. And I'm going to paint that along the top of my picture. But if you want to have yours to be like during the daytime, maybe you'll have some more blue at the top. One important rule with watercolor that I forgot to mention on this video today is that when I'm switching colors with my brush, I always, before I go to the next one, I always want to dip my brush in the water to give it a good rinse. Then I wipe it on the side, and then I can go to a new color, and it will make sure that I'm not getting that color dirty with the color that I was just using. So it's good to have a clean brush when I go to the new color. Alright, so now I've got some water, I have my sky painted in, And now, while this paint is still wet, and I can tell it's still wet if I look for the shiny parts of the paint on the page, because it, when it's wet, it has that little bit of a reflection. And I'm going to take out my salt, use some pincher fingers to pinch a little bit of salt at a time. And if I see some wet spots on my picture, I can drop a little bit of salt. Maybe I'll drop some up here where it's still really wet. And this is just optional if you'd like, but the salt likes to suck up some of that paint, and it will leave a beautiful effect on the painting. And I'm being careful that I'm not moving that salt around with my finger, otherwise the effect of the salt will not work. So now that I've added my salt, I need to now move this off to the side so it can dry. So I'm going to find a place, being careful being careful to hold it nice and flat so that nothing falls off. And we're going to begin to make our sailboat pieces now. So I'm going to move my paints out of the way so I have a clear area to work. Now, to begin with our sailboat, we're going to use some cardboard for the bottom of our boat, and we're going to draw the shape of the bottom part of our sailboat. Now, you can choose any shape you'd like to be the bottom of your boat. It could be a rectangle, it can be an oval, but if you'd like to follow along with me, I'm going to be doing a half circle shape, or half of an oval. Now, if parents, if you're fine with your kids using a Sharpie, we're going to use a Sharpie now, or you can use one of your crayons as well. But remember, if we're using Sharpie, we're making sure to only draw on our paper, not on ourselves, on our clothing, anywhere else, because these are permanent markers. So with my cardboard piece, I want to hold my paper nice and still, and I'm going to draw the top part of my half circle. So that is a straight line. So my hand is going to start on one side and make a little zooming line going across the page, just like this. I probably don't want it to go as wide as this whole thing, because when I stick this on my picture later, I think this cardboard is wider than my picture, and I don't want it to be too much bigger than my picture so it can fit in the water. Now, I have it's hard to see, but I have my line. Now I want to make my round shape, starting here, curving down and over and meeting the top, meeting the other side. So I'm going to curve my line over, curving it over and up until it meets that other line, just like this. So I guess it's more of a half oval than a half circle. It kind of looks like a smile, or maybe a orange slice. All right. Now, what we're going to be doing is taking out our scissors next. And again, parents, if you're comfortable giving your children some scissors, we're going to be using them, making sure that we're nice and safe as we're using them, always making sure they're pointed away from us. And when we're holding it, we're making sure that the scissors are never going too close to our other hand. But this cardboard is a little bit tougher than cutting paper, so maybe, parents, this is a good one for you to help cut. And I'm going to try to follow. So I'm opening it wide, chomping and pushing those scissors to follow along the outside of my sailboat shape. Cutting it. There we go. So I've cut around the bottom. Now I want to cut straight along the top. Alright, so if you've cut out your shape, you shouldn't have too much extra around the shape of your lines. now I think our boat is ready to have a little bit of color added to it. So we're going to bring back our paints. And I'm going to choose a color to paint my boat. Or if you want to choose more than one color, you can. So if you want to give it a pattern, you can. Now, to begin with, I'm going to get my brush, wipe it on the side, always remember so I'm not dripping everywhere. And now I'm going to choose my color. Maybe my boat is going to be green. Or I'll start with green. I might make it a couple of colors. So holding that shape nice and still. And I can paint right across. So maybe the top part of my boat is green. And the bottom will be, maybe I'll make it red. Again, always rinsing my brush after I've used it. Wiping it on the side. And now I'm going to get a little bit of red. Alright, so right now I have two colors. I don't know, it's hard to see in the light. Sorry, the lighting is not the best here. So I've got green and red. Hello! Alright, and now what I can also do is use some other colors, and I can actually paint on top of those colors I've already added. So maybe I want to add a few polka dots on my boat. So maybe I'll get some, I think I'm going to get some blue. Get a little bit on my brush. And with my brush I can now hop my brush to make a few dots, polka dots. So I'm hopping it around to make some dots on my If you'd like, you can add a little pattern like that. So we're trying to see the best angle. I've got some little dots. You can do that wherever you would like. Maybe I'm even going to paint some stripes by making some lines going straight across. Alright. So here, I'll lift it so you can see. So I've got the colors I would like. But now I'm going to add a few little windows to my sailboat. And I thought, so this is, you could either paint those windows, but if you have some old buttons lying around the house that you maybe wanted to incorporate into this, now you can take those out. So I have some buttons here I thought we could use. So I'll choose a few, and I thought these round shapes might look like the little circle windows we sometimes see on boats, and we're going to glue these down onto our boat. So you can choose some that are the same color or different colors. I have all kinds of different colors I'm going to use. So I'm choosing 3. And now I'm going to take out my glue. I had some white glue, white school glue, that I've just poured into a container, and I'm using a popsicle stick to help spread it out. Now this glue is very gooey and sticky, so when we use this kind of glue we always want to make sure that as we scoop up some glue, we wipe it on the side, and now when I lift it up it won't drip as much. So now on my sailboat I'm going to choose a spot to glue my first button. So I want to spread some of that glue. Pick up my button and give it a good press into that glue. And I'm going to keep doing that. I can choose a few more spots to put my buttons. So remember, scoop, wipe it on the side, find a new spot, and press. Okay, scoop, wipe it on the side, spread it out, and my last button I'm going to press. So now my boat has a few little circle windows on it. Now I'm going to set that aside so it can dry a little bit. So I'll find another spot. And next, I'm going to ask that you take out your bamboo skewer. If you don't have any bamboo, so I've got one here. But if you don't have one, what you could also use is a very thin piece of cardboard that you can cut to be the size. Now this bamboo skewer is pretty long, so if we make our sails go this tall, because this is going to be the mast on our sailboat and that the sails are going to be attached to. This is pretty tall, it's almost taller than the whole picture. So grown-ups, you're going to be helping cut some of these. And again, grown-ups, you're the ones doing this part. You're going to choose a spot along here, and we're going to cut. They're pretty strong, so we can't cut all the way through it, but we're going to score it. So I'm taking my scissors, choosing my length, being very careful I'm not going near my hand, and I'm just pressing in a little bit to score and scoring that bamboo skewer. And now I'll have a line that I can break it along. And then I'm going to hold it nice and close to that area, bend it back and forth, and I get a pretty clean break. So that makes it a little bit shorter and maybe the size I want to use to create my sailboat mast. So this later on will be glued down to our picture, so it'll be coming out of our sailboat to be the mast in the middle of our boat. But I wanted it to be cut to size now so that we can figure out how big we want to make our sails. And for our sails, we are going to be using paper towel. Trying to use lots of products that you might have at home already, so no one needs to go out to buy these things. So you can take your paper towel, and what we're going to do is lay it beside our bamboo skewer so that we know how big this is going to be next to our ship's mast. And what we're going to be doing on here is drawing the shape of our first sail. And on sailboats, usually we sometimes see triangle shapes. But because these paper towels already have these nice corners, 2 out of the 3 sides of our triangle are already drawn for us. So I'm laying it flat. And again, using my helper hand to hold my paper nice and still. I'm going to now choose a spot along the bottom depending how wide I want my sail to be. And I'm going to draw at an angle. So I'm starting out here and I want my line to go all the way up to the corner. So I'm drawing my line across to the corner. So I only had to draw one line, but I have 1, 2, 3 sides to make my triangle for my sail. Now I'm going to put the cap on to make sure that my Sharpie doesn't dry out. And now we're going to cut along that black line. So again, making sure that my hand is away from my scissors and I'm cutting away from myself. This will be much easier to cut than the cardboard. I'm going to cut along that black line. And when I am finished, I should have my triangle for my sail. Now on sailboats, we sometimes have 2 sails, so we're going to do that same thing again. We're going to take out our paper towel, and if you'd like, we can do the exact same thing. So I'm going to turn it around, and now on the other side, I'm going to get my Sharpie, take it up, my lid off, starting at the bottom or at the top corner, and I want to make my line go up at an angle. So I'm starting down here, I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller than the other side. So I'm starting a little bit closer to the edge, and I'm going to go all the way up to the corner. So again, I have 1 and then 3 sides for my triangle. And I want to cut along my black line that I drew to make my other sail. Alright. So now we should have 2 triangles that are going to be our sails on our ship. On our boat, I should say. Now, I'm going to put away my watercolors for right now to make a little bit of room. And if you have some extra paper towel, you might want to take your pieces out to lay down so that we have something to lay our sails on in a second. And if you have food coloring at home and some containers of water, instead of watercolors, we're going to do a little bit of a different type of painting. We're going to do some dip dyeing to make our the sails for the boat, have some color. So I've already got some pre-prepared, but if you don't, what you're going to do is take some water, and depending on how many colors you'd like for your sails, you can add a little bit of water. You don't need to add too much, just a little bit, because if you add too much, you need to use more food coloring to make it nice and strong color. But if you use just a little bit of water, then your food coloring can go, you don't have to use as much, and it can go a longer way that way. So I'm just adding a little bit of water, and then I can take my food coloring, and I'm going to add around maybe 3 drops to these. 1, 2, 3. So I've got some blue. These are the only colors I had, but whatever colors you would like to use, you can. I have some red, so I'm going to drop red into my next one. 1, 2, 4. And I've got some green, so I'm going to take some green, squeeze 1, 2, 3 drops into the last one there. Now, right now, these drops are just sitting in the water. It's a little hard to see, but we're going to give it a stir to make sure that color is really mixed. So you can take your brush, wipe it on the side, and give your paint a little stir. Now, just nice and slow. You don't want this to spray out or splash out anywhere. And just like using watercolors, we want to make sure before we go to our other color, we want to dip our brush back in the water to rinse it off. Now I'm going to go to the red and give that one a stir. Alright. And again, I'm going to rinse my brush. And my last color, blue, I'm going to give that one a stir. Now, what you can do before you actually dip your actual sails, we can do a little test to see if those colors are nice and dark. So I'm going to rip a piece to test. Maybe I'll rip 3 pieces to test my 3 colors. So, and then we can see if it's dark enough. So there's my green. See how it sucks up some of that color? But I think I'd want mine to be a little bit darker, so I would probably add a few more drops to make it nice and dark. But I'll try my red, dipping that in. Ooh, that red is nice and good, so I think that red is fine. And my blue. Ooh, the blue, I think the blue is pretty good too. So just my green needs a little bit more. So being very careful not to spill. Dripping a few more in. And again, we want to stir that. Alright, so now comes the fun part. I love dip dyeing. Now, I can take my sail and just start dipping it like this, or I can also fold it gently to dip different, it'll dip different sections and kind of create a little bit of a almost tie-dye effect. All right, now for this sail, I'm going to dip each corner. So I've got 3 corners into the 3 colors. So I'll start with one, dipping it just a little bit in. And you see how it sucked up that color? Now I'm going to turn it around to another corner. Oh, there we go. So I've got some blue and red. There's not much room for green left, but I'm going to dip just a little bit in. There we go. So it's all folded up, but now as I open it, I'm going to be very careful because when this is wet, the paper towel is very fragile. So I'm unfolding. So parents, you might want to help with this. If it's sometimes a little bit tricky to find those edges, and I'm going to unfold. All right, find all those edges because I want to lay it nice and flat so it can dry. But you see I've got my beautiful dipped colors for my sail. And I'm going to lay this to dry on some paper towel because that will help absorb some of the wetness from the sail. Now I've got one more sail. I'd like to do the same thing. Again, I don't have to use all of the same colors. It could just be one color. It could be just 2 or all 3 again. But I'm going to fold mine up. So folding it up, trying to make corners meet corners. Folding. So I've just created a smaller little folded up triangle. And I think for this one, I want it to just be maybe just red and blue. So I'm going to dip some red. I'm almost trying to go halfway. And I'm going to turn it around and get blue on that other side. All right. So there we are. And now this one needs to get unfolded too. So being very careful to unfold and not rip. Alright. Trying to find those edges, gently unfold it, and I'm going to find an empty spot on my paper towel to let it dry. Because these are pretty wet. I can even take another piece of paper towel and gently press it on top too to help suck up some of that wetness so that it will dry a little bit quicker. Now I'm going to do the same on the other one. Now I'm going to carefully set these dies aside and also set my sails to the side for now. So you can, now if you set aside your picture of your water and sky, we're going to bring that out. So I've got the bottom of my boat. Now I can choose where I want to place this in my water. Do you want your boat to be right in the middle? Is it lower down? Is it higher up? So you find your spot. Once you do, we're going to lift it up. Remember the spot where we just wanted it to go. And now we want to put some glue down in that. Sticky and drippy, so we want to scoop, wipe it on the side. And I'm going to spread lots of glue. So I might have to do that a few times because I want to make sure there's enough glue. So I'm going to scoop some more. Now most white glue dries clear, so you don't have to worry about getting it in spots that you didn't want it to go, because once it's all dry, it will dry clear. My glue that I'm using is kind of a see-through one, but any white glue should dry clear. Alright, so when you've spread out your glue, you're going to pick up your boat, the bottom of your boat, and we want to give it a good press down onto that glue. Giving it a good press, just make sure that that glue is spreading underneath it and it's going to make sure that it really sticks down. So we have our boat bottom now attached with our little buttons. Next, we have our ship mast. So I think, oh, I have mine. That was one from earlier. So I want to stick my mast on next. So I'm going to choose my spot probably right from the middle of my boat, I think, going to the top. So again, I need more glue to get this to stick. And I'm going to spread this glue in a line going from the bottom or top of my boat in the middle all the way to the top of my picture. So I'm going to spread a nice amount of glue there so that this bamboo skewer sticks. All right. Now, if you've got the pointy side, you can decide if you want that up or down. I think for me, I'll have that at the top. Oh, and I want this to go on top of my boat a little bit too. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue coming over top. So just like this. And I want to give that a good press down, just like I did with the boat. Pressing it down. There we are. So now we have we've got the ship or the boat bottom, the sailboat's bottom. We have the mast, and it's just missing our two sails. So we can carefully pick one up. They're a little wet, so you just want to be careful because they are fragile. But if you'd like to test out where you want to put your sails, you can lay them down. And I want to try to make sure that I'm laying them down with, do you see how on this triangle, there's the ones that have this kind of 90-degree angle, so adults, you can help with this part. So it makes this kind of perfect corner. We want those corners to be facing into our ship's mast. So I'm going to put that in over here. All right. So they're not glued down yet, but you can see that my sailboat is starting to come together slowly. So I've chosen my spot. Instead of lifting the whole thing up, what I can do is just glue little sections at a time. So I'm going to pick up my glue, make sure I'm wiping it on the side here, spreading a little bit down. And then I can press that part down that has the glue already, and then I can fold back my other side to make sure there's some glue along the top. So I'm just folding it back a little bit. And then I'm unfolding it and giving it a good press. Now I want to do the same on my other sail to make sure that it's really stuck down. So carefully folding up the bottom. Spreading some glue. And then folding it down and pressing it into that glue. So the last little spot on our sail that needs glue is the top of this one. So there we are. We have a sailboat sailing on some water with its sunset sky. Now one last optional step, and I realize I actually don't have them here with me, so if you'll excuse me for 1 second, I'm going to quickly grab my cotton balls because we can add one extra little 3D step. So I actually couldn't find my cotton balls, but I do have some kind of stuffing fluff, which gives us the same idea as a cotton ball. So if you do have your cotton balls with you, what we're going to do is take one, and then you want to lightly pry it apart. So I'm pretending this is a cotton ball, and I'm just gently pulling it apart. And this can become a little 3D cloud on our picture if we would like it. So I'm going to find a spot. Just spread some glue. And I want to add a puffy cloud to my sky. So taking my cotton ball, or my pretend cotton ball, and I'm going to press that down onto my sky. And you can, as many clouds as you would like to add, you can add at the top of our picture here. So I'm going to scoop a little more. I want to make another one, maybe a little lower down. So taking my cotton ball and then gently pulling it apart and pressing it onto that glue. I have a few little fluffy clouds that I've added to my picture. Alright everyone, so that is all of the steps for today. Thank you so much for joining in. It's so nice to see all of you here watching. If you have any feedback or any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. And I hope to do some more of these, and I will keep you all posted. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again. Bye!